I knew something was off the moment I pulled into the driveway. Caleb's car was in the garage, which was strange since he was supposed to be at the conference with me all week. My heart raced as I rushed through the front door, my work suitcase still in hand. "Caleb, are you home?" I called out, my voice echoing through the empty foyer. That's when I heard it, a soft giggle coming from the living room. I crept forward, my pulse pounding in my ears. Peeking around the corner, I felt the air leave my lungs. There was my husband, Caleb, tangled up on the couch with my stepmother, Fiona, their limbs intertwined, clothes disheveled, their lips locked in a heated embrace. I stared in stunned silence, unable to process what I was witnessing. After a moment that felt like an eternity, they broke apart, finally noticing my presence. Fiona's eyes went wide with panic, while Caleb's face drained of color. "Alara, what are you doing home?" he sputtered, jumping to his feet. I couldn't find the words to respond. The betrayal I felt was visceral, twisting my gut into knots. Fiona tried to smooth down her mussed hair, an unconvincing attempt at nonchalance. The conference was canceled. I came home early, I managed to say, my voice wavering. Caleb ran a hand through his hair, his brow furrowed. I didn't expect you back until the end of the week. Fiona and I were just... He trailed off, visibly flustered. "Just what, Caleb?" I snapped, the anger rising in my chest. "Enjoying a little afternoon delight while your wife was away?" Fiona cleared her throat, casting a sidelong glance at Caleb. "Alara, darling, this isn't what it looks like. We were simply..." "Don't you dare darling me," I spat, cutting her off. "I know exactly what this is. You're sleeping with my husband." Caleb opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand to silence him. "Save it. I don't want to hear your excuses." I could feel the hot sting of tears in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. Instead, I straightened my shoulders and fixed them with a cold, hard stare. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded. Fiona and Caleb exchanged a guilty glance. "Alara, please, let's not," Caleb began. "How long?" I repeated, my voice rising. "A few months," Fiona admitted, her gaze dropping to the floor. The words hit me like a physical blow. Months. They'd been betraying me for months, carried on this sordid affair right under my nose. I felt sick to my stomach, the betrayal cutting me to the core. "Get out," I said, my voice low and trembling with barely contained rage. "Get out of my house, both of you." Caleb took a step forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Alara, please, let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," I snapped. "You've made your choice. Now get out, before I call the police." Fiona grabbed Caleb's arm, tugging him towards the door. "Come on, Caleb. Let's give Alara some time to calm down." As they hurried out, I felt a surge of vindictive satisfaction, but it was quickly overshadowed by the anguish and humiliation of what I had just witnessed. Alone in the silent house, I sank down onto the couch, finally letting the tears fall. I don't know how long I sat there on the couch, tears streaming down my face. The betrayal felt like a physical wound, burning and raw. Caleb and Fiona, my own husband and stepmother, how could they do this to me? Eventually, the initial shock began to subside, replaced by a white-hot fury. I had to do something. I couldn't just let them get away with this. Wiping my eyes, I pulled out my phone and quickly composed messages to Leah and Aaron, Caleb's parents. "Emergency. Call me as soon as you get this. It's about Caleb and Fiona." I hit send, my fingers trembling. I knew they deserved to know the truth, and I needed their support. Caleb and Fiona had taken so much from me already. I refused to let them take my family too. It didn't take long for the phone to start ringing. I took a deep breath and answered. "Alara, what's going on?" Leah's concerned voice came through the line. "Is everything all right?" "No, Leah, everything is not all right," I said, my voice still shaky. "Caleb and Fiona, they're having an affair." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "What? That can't be true," Leah finally spluttered. "Caleb would never." "I saw them, Leah," I interrupted, the words spilling out in a rush. "I came home early and found them together on the couch. They were kissing and hop." I broke off, the sickening image seared in my mind. "Oh my God," Leah whispered. I could hear the shock and disbelief in her voice. "Are you sure? This has to be some kind of mistake." "I wish it was," I said bitterly, "but it's true. They were caught red-handed." Leah was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. This is I don't even know what to say. My son and your stepmother? How could they do this to you? I don't know, I admitted, clenching my free hand into a fist, but I'm going to make them pay for it. What do you mean? What are you going to do? Leah asked, a hint of alarm in her voice. I'm going to destroy them, I said, my voice cold and determined. I have proof of their affair, and I'm going to use it. They won't get away with this. Alara, I know you're hurt, but... No, Leah. I cut her off. They betrayed me. They betrayed our family, and I'm not going to just sit back and let them get away with it. I heard Leah sigh heavily. All right, Alara, what do you need us to do? I felt a twinge of relief at her words. I need you and Aaron to come over as soon as you can. We need to discuss our next move. We'll be there as soon as possible, Leah promised. Hang in there, Alara. We'll get through this together. Thank you, I whispered, my vision blurring with fresh tears. I'll see you soon. I ended the call, taking a shuddering breath. It was time to take action. I would not allow Caleb and Fiona to continue their betrayal. They had to pay for what they'd done. Steeling my resolve, I headed upstairs to my bedroom. I needed to find that video I had recorded earlier. It was the key to bringing them down. I paced back and forth in the living room, my fingers tightening around the recording on my phone. Any minute now, Leah and Aaron would be here, and I would finally have the support I needed to take down Caleb and Fiona. The doorbell rang, and I hurried to answer it. Leah and Aaron stood on the other side, their expressions grave. Alara, Leah said, pulling me into a tight hug. I'm so sorry, honey. I returned the embrace, grateful for her comfort, but I quickly pulled away. Thank you for coming. We need to talk. I led them into the living room, gesturing for them to have a seat. They exchanged a concerned look as they sat down on the couch. Alara, what's going on? Aaron asked, his brow furrowed. Leah told me about Caleb and Fiona, but I still can't believe it. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I have proof, I said, holding up my phone. I recorded them together earlier. Leah's eyes widened. You recorded them? She asked, her voice hushed. I nodded. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, so I started recording. I have it all. The kisses, the touching, the admissions of their affair. Aaron leaned forward, his expression hardening. Let me see it. I handed him the phone, and he and Leah watched the video in silence. I watched their faces, saw the shock and disgust register on their features. When the video ended, Aaron handed the phone back to me, his hands trembling slightly. That's proof. All right, he said, his voice gruff. Leah shook her head, tears in her eyes. I can't believe Caleb would do this, and with Fiona, of all people. I met her gaze, my own eyes burning with unshed tears. I know, I'm just as shocked as you are. Aaron reached out and squeezed my hand. We're here for you, Alara. Whatever you need, we'll be by your side. I felt a surge of gratitude, mixed with a renewed determination. Thank you. I'm going to need your help to take them down. Leah frowned. What do you mean, take them down? What are you planning to do? I straightened my shoulders, my expression hardening. I'm going to expose their affair to the community. I'm going to ruin them, just like they ruined me. Micah, my father, chose that moment to enter the room. Ruin who? He asked, his brow furrowed. I turned to him, my heart pounding. Dad, I need your help. Caleb and Fiona, they're having an affair. Micah's eyes widened in shock. What? That's impossible. Fiona would never. It's true, Dad, I interrupted, my voice trembling. I have proof. I handed him the phone and he watched the video, his face growing more and more distraught. When it ended, he slowly looked up at me, his expression a mix of disbelief and betrayal. This can't be, he whispered. Fiona, she would never. She has, I said, my voice hardening. She's been lying to you, to all of us, and I'm going to make her pay for it. Micah stared at me for a long moment, then slowly nodded. Okay, Alara, what do you need me to do? I felt a surge of relief and gratitude. With my father and Caleb's parents on my side, I knew I could bring Caleb and Fiona down. They wouldn't know what hit them. With my father and Caleb's parents on board, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Fiona and Caleb thought they could get away with their betrayal, but they were sorely mistaken. I was going to make them pay for what they'd done. Okay, so what's the plan? Micah asked, his brow furrowed in determination. I took a deep breath, already formulating my strategy. First, we need to dig deeper into Fiona's past. I have a feeling there's more to her than meets the eye. Leah nodded in agreement. You know, There have always been little things about her that have bothered me over the years. Things just never quite added up. Like what? I pressed, my eyes narrowing. Well, for one, she's always been very careful with money, even when we're well off, Leah explained. And she has this way of manipulating people, making them feel guilty or indebted to her. Aaron grunted in agreement. Yeah, and remember that time she got Caleb to invest in that shady business venture? He ended up losing a lot of money, but Fiona somehow managed to come out on top. I felt a spark of triumph. This was exactly the kind of information I needed. Okay, so we know Fiona is financially shrewd and manipulative. What else can we find out about her? Micah cleared his throat, his expression pained. I'm afraid I may have some more insight into Fiona's past. When we first started dating, she told me about some financial troubles she had, but I never dug deeper. What kind of financial troubles? I asked, my heart pounding. Micah hesitated, then sighed heavily. Apparently she was involved in some kind of fraud scheme in her previous marriage. She managed to avoid any legal consequences, but the fallout destroyed her first husband's career and reputation. I felt a chill run down my spine. Fraud, manipulation, deceit, it was all starting to paint a clearer picture of Fiona's true nature. We need to find out more about this, I said, my voice hardening. Fiona has been lying to all of us for years, and I want to know the full extent of her betrayal. The others nodded in agreement, and we set to work, combing through old records and making phone calls. As the hours ticked by, a damning portrait emerged. Fiona had a history of financial impropriety, using her charm and cunning to manipulate those around her. She had ruined her ex-husband's life, and now she was doing the same to Caleb. I felt a surge of rage coursing through me, fueling my determination to bring her down. This is worse than we thought, Micah said grimly as we pored over the documents. Fiona has been draining our accounts, funneling money into her own private investments, and Caleb has been helping her all along. The bastards, Leah spat, her hands trembling. How could they do this to us? They thought they could get away with it, I said, my voice low and deadly, but they're about to learn just how wrong they were. I stood up, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Fiona and Caleb had dug their own graves, and I was going to make sure they were buried in them. Okay, here's what we're going to do. With Micah, Leah, and Aaron on board, we set to work crafting our plan of attack against Fiona and Caleb. The more we uncovered about Fiona's sordid past, the more determined I became to bring her down. Okay, here's what we're going to do, I said, addressing the group. Fiona has been manipulating our finances for years, draining our accounts and funneling money into her own investments, so we're going to use that against her. Micah nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. What did you have in mind? We're going to set up a fake investment scheme, I explained, a hint of a smile tugging at my lips. Something that will appeal to Fiona's greed and need for control. Leah's eyes widened. You mean lure her into a trap? Exactly, I replied. We'll create a can't-miss investment opportunity at something that will make her think she can line her pockets even further. But in reality, it will be nothing more than a clever ruse. Aaron let out a low whistle. That's bold, Alara. Are you sure you want to go down that road? I met his gaze, my expression unwavering. After what they've done to me, to our family? Absolutely. Fiona and Caleb need to pay for their betrayal. Micah placed a hand on my shoulder, his eyes filled with a mixture of pride and concern. I'm with you, Alara. Whatever it takes to bring them down. Leah and Aaron exchanged a silent look, then nodded in agreement. All right, let's do it, Leah said, her voice resolute. Over the next few days, we set the trap, meticulously crafting the details of our fake investment scheme. Fiona's greed and desire for control were exactly what we were counting on. This is perfect, Fiona purred, her eyes gleaming with excitement as Micah presented the opportunity to her. A guaranteed return on investment? I'd be a fool not to take advantage of this. Caleb, standing beside her, looked uneasy. I don't know, honey, it sounds too good to be true. Fiona shot him a sharp look. Don't be so skeptical, Caleb. This is exactly the kind of investment we need to bolster our portfolio. Caleb hesitated, but one stern glare from Fiona had him quickly nodding in agreement. Okay. If you think it's a good idea, then let's do it. I watched the exchange, my stomach churning with a mixture of disgust and satisfaction. Fiona was falling right into our trap, and Caleb was too weak-willed to put up any real resistance. As Fiona eagerly wired the funds, I quietly set the wheels in motion on the legal front. With the help of a trusted attorney, I began the process of freezing our joint accounts and filing for divorce against Caleb. "This is it, Alara," Micah said, his voice low as we watched the money transfer. "There's no turning back now." I met his gaze, my eyes hardening. "Good, I don't want to turn back. Fiona and Caleb are going to pay for what they've done." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Fiona and Caleb quickly realized that their lucrative investment was nothing more than a ruse, and the legal proceedings against them began to unfold. As the community learned of their betrayal, Fiona and Caleb found themselves increasingly isolated and ostracized. The once perfect family was crumbling, and I took a grim satisfaction in watching it all fall apart. Now it was time for the final act of our revenge. The day of the big community event had arrived, and Fiona and Caleb had no idea what was about to hit them. After weeks of carefully plotting our revenge, the time had come to finally expose their betrayal to the world. I arrived at the event, my heart racing with a mix of nerves and determination. Micah, Leah, and Aaron were already there, scattered throughout the crowd, ready to play their parts. As I mingled with the other guests, I kept a watchful eye, waiting for Fiona and Caleb to make an appearance. It didn't take long before I spotted them, hand in hand, putting on a nauseating display of affection. I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves, and made my way over to them. "Fiona, Caleb," I said, my voice as cool and composed as I could manage, "I'm surprised to see you both here." Fiona flashed me a brilliant smile, completely oblivious to the storm brewing. "Alara, darling, we wouldn't miss this event for the world." Caleb shifted uncomfortably, casting a nervous glance around the crowded room. "Yeah, we're happy to support the community, you know?" I nodded, my gaze boring into them. "That's interesting, considering the way you've been betraying this community." Fiona's brow furrowed in confusion. "Betraying? I'm not sure what you mean, Alara." "Oh, I think you know exactly what I mean," I said, my voice dripping with venom. "Your little affair with my husband, for starters." Fiona's eyes went wide, and Caleb's face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" Fiona stammered, her composure slipping. "Don't play dumb with me, Fiona," I snapped. "I have proof of your disgusting little tryst, and that's just the tip of the iceberg." I raised my voice, ensuring the nearby guests could hear every word. "Fiona Adler has been manipulating and defrauding this entire community for years. She's a lying, deceitful, money-grubbing witch who has destroyed lives for her own personal gain." The crowd around us fell silent, all eyes turning to the unfolding drama. Fiona's face was a mask of panic, while Caleb looked utterly mortified. "Alara, please, let's not do this here," Caleb pleaded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, but I think we must," I retorted, a humorless laugh escaping my lips. "You two have been living in your perfect little fantasy world for far too long. It's time the truth came to light." I gestured to the stunned onlookers. "Fiona has been draining our joint accounts, funneling money into her own private investments, and Caleb has been complicit in her crimes the entire time." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd, and I could see the dawning realization on their faces. Fiona's expression morphed into one of pure fury. "You bitch," she hissed, her eyes narrowing to slits. "How dare you do this to me?" "How dare I?" I echoed, my voice dripping with contempt. "How dare you? You've betrayed this entire community, and now you're going to pay for it." I turned to the crowd, my gaze sweeping over the faces of our friends and neighbors. Fiona Adler and Caleb Harrison have been having an affair for months, and Fiona has been systematically robbing us all blind. The crowd erupted in a chorus of outraged shouts and gasps, and I watched with a grim satisfaction as Fiona and Caleb were engulfed in the backlash. Their perfect facade had been shattered, and now they had nowhere left to hide. The aftermath of my public confrontation with Fiona and Caleb was swift and merciless. As the community learned the full extent of their betrayal, both social and legal consequences came crashing down on them. Micah, Leah, and Aaron wasted no time in filing for divorce, citing Fiona's infidelity and financial fraud as the grounds. The legal proceedings quickly unearthed even more of Fiona's deceitful activities, revealing the depths of her manipulations. The records show that Fiona has been systematically draining our joint accounts for years, Micah's lawyer explained during the divorce hearing. She funneled hundreds of thousands of dollars into her own private investments, all while maintaining a facade of financial stability for this family. The judge's eyes widened in shock as the evidence was presented. "This is a serious offense, Mrs. Adler. You could be facing criminal charges for your actions." Fiona sat there, her usually composed demeanor crumbling. She fidgeted nervously, casting desperate glances at Caleb, who looked utterly defeated. "Your Honor, my client maintains her innocence," Fiona's lawyer tried to interject. "These are merely allegations with no solid proof." I couldn't help but let out a derisive snort. "No proof? We have bank statements, wire transfers, and eyewitness accounts of Fiona's manipulation. The evidence is overwhelming." The judge raised a hand, silencing the commotion. "Be that as it may, the court will need time to review the full scope of the evidence before rendering a decision. In the meantime, I am granting an immediate freeze on all joint accounts held by the Adler and Harrison families." Fiona's face drained of color, and Caleb let out a strangled gasp. Their carefully constructed facade of wealth and privilege was crumbling before their eyes. As the hearing concluded, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. Fiona and Caleb were finally facing the consequences of their actions, and it was a sight to behold. In the days that followed, the social fallout was just as devastating. Word of the scandal spread like wildfire through our close-knit community, and Fiona and Caleb found themselves increasingly ostracized. "Can you believe what that Adler woman has been up to?" I overheard one of our neighbors whispering to another at the local grocery store. "And with her own stepdaughter's husband, no less, the nerve of her." Wherever Fiona and Caleb went, they were met with cold stares and hushed whispers. The once-adored power couple had become pariahs, their reputations in tatters. I watched it all unfold with a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. While I took pleasure in seeing them reap what they had sown, a part of me couldn't help but feel the weight of the betrayal. My own husband, the man I had loved and trusted, had turned against me in the most devastating way. But I refused to let that pain consume me. Instead, I channeled it into my determination to see this through to the end. Fiona and Caleb would not get away with their crimes, not if I had anything to say about it. As the legal proceedings continued, I knew that the worst was yet to come for the once untouchable couple. They had dug their own grave, and now they would have to lie in it. Chapter 8: New Beginnings. As the final gavel fell, signaling the end of Fiona and Caleb's legal downfall, I felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. After months of relentless pursuit, justice had been served. Fiona was sentenced to a lengthy prison term for her financial crimes, while Caleb received a hefty fine and probation for his complicity in her schemes. The once powerful couple had been brought to their knees, their reputations and livelihoods in tatters. I stood in the courtroom, watching as Fiona and Caleb were led away, their expressions a mix of defeat and disbelief. A part of me felt a twinge of sympathy, but it was quickly overshadowed by the knowledge of the pain and suffering they had inflicted. In the aftermath of the trial, I found myself surrounded by the unwavering support of my father, Micah, and Caleb's parents, Leah and Aaron. They had stood by me every step of the way, and their loyalty and love helped me begin to heal. "It's finally over, Alara," Micah said, pulling me into a warm embrace. "You did it. You brought them down." I nodded, feeling the weight of the past few months begin to lift from my shoulders. "It's over. We can move on now." Leah placed a gentle hand on my arm, her eyes shining with pride. "We're so proud of you, Alara. You've shown incredible strength and resilience." "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you all." As the days turned into weeks, I began to focus on rebuilding my own life. I threw myself into my work, channeling my energy into becoming an even more successful sales manager. The thrill of closing deals and the camaraderie of my team helped to fill the void left by Caleb's betrayal. In my personal life, I reconnected with old friends and discovered new hobbies. I took up hiking, finding solace in the peace and tranquility of the great outdoors. Slowly but surely, I began to rediscover the joy and fulfillment that had been missing for so long. Micah, too, seemed to be on a path of healing and self-discovery. He spent more time with his grandchildren, mending the rift that had formed between him and Caleb. Leah and Aaron were also there for him, offering a steadfast support system as he navigated the aftermath of his divorce. One sunny afternoon, as I was tending to my small garden, Micah approached me with a thoughtful expression. "Alara, I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you," he said, his voice soft. "You've shown incredible strength and resilience, and I'm honored to call you my daughter." I felt my eyes well up with tears, and I pulled him into a tight embrace. "Thank you, Dad. I couldn't have done it without you," he chuckled, giving me a gentle squeeze. "You did all the hard work, Alara. I'm just glad I could be here for you." As we parted, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace and contentment. The past few months had been a whirlwind of pain and betrayal, but I had emerged stronger and more determined than ever. Fiona and Caleb may have thought they could destroy me, but they had underestimated the power of my resilience. I had reclaimed my life, and now I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it may hold.